The laughter started before Daniel Wright even finished speaking. The IT echoed through the massive council chamber like rolling thunder. Thousands of alien delegates from hundreds of species filled the curved seats, rising toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Their laughter came in clicks, hisses, deep rumbles, and high whistles. Different languages, different bodies, but the same message. Humans were fools. Daniel stood alone at the speaker's platform, a small figure in a simple gray suit. Behind him, a holographic display showed a dying star. The star was called Vethani Prime, and it was killing the homeworld of 12 billion people. "The stellar shield can work," Daniel said calmly. He waited for the laughter to fade. "I have the calculations. I have the designs. I am asking for permission to try." A tall figure rose from the front row. High Prefect Morith led the Galactic Engineering Guild. His species had built structures across 1,000 star systems for over 2 million years. His skin was like polished stone, and his voice carried the weight of those years. "Human," Morith said, "my guild has studied this problem for 10,000 years. The Vethani themselves have worked on solutions for just as long. The radiation cannot be stopped. The star cannot be saved. Relocation is the only option, and relocation of 12 billion beings is beyond any civilization's ability." "Including yours?" Daniel asked. The chamber went silent. "Including ours," Morith admitted. "The Vethani will scatter across the galaxy. Their culture will fragment. Their history will fade. This is tragedy, but it is reality. We do not waste resources on impossible dreams." Daniel nodded slowly. "How long have humans been part of the galactic community?" 47 years, someone called out. More laughter followed. 47 years, Daniel repeated. "And in those 47 years, what have we shown you? We showed you engines that burn hotter than your models said possible. We showed you medicines your computers called theoretical. We showed you that a species from a heavy gravity world with a poison atmosphere could reach the stars in less than 300 years. He let that settle. The Vethani have 200 years before their world dies. You have already given up. We have not." An elderly Vethani rose from the delegation section. His scales had faded to pale gray, and his movements were slow. But his eyes were sharp. "I am Toril," he said, "senior observer of the Vethani Collective. I have watched species rise and fall for 400 years. I have seen 1,000 grand plans crumble into dust." He looked directly at Daniel. "But I have also learned that sometimes the universe surprises us. I wish to observe your attempt, human. If your council approves, I will document your work, your success or your failure." Another Vethani stood beside him, younger, stronger, with bright golden scales. "I am Suri. I am a physicist. I believe this is impossible, and I wish to prove it." Daniel smiled. "Then come watch us do the impossible." The council voted. Humanity received permission to attempt the Stellar Shield project. They were given minimal resources and 50 years. The vote was not a sign of faith. It was a way to let humans fail quietly, far from civilized space, where their embarrassment would not disturb anyone. After the session ended, Morith approached Daniel in the corridor outside. "You will fail," Morith said. It was not cruel. It was simply fact, delivered by someone who had seen too many failures to count. "Maybe," Daniel said, "but my people have a saying. The person who says something is impossible should not interrupt the person doing it." Morith's stone face showed nothing. "What drives you? Resources? Power? Recognition?" Daniel thought about the question carefully. "When I was young," he said, "my grandmother's house burned down. She lost everything. Every photo, every memory, every piece of her life. The next morning, neighbors I had never met came with food, with clothes, with tools. They rebuilt her house in 3 weeks. She asked them why. They said because she needed help." He met Morith's ancient eyes. 12 billion people need help. That is all the reason humans require." Morith was silent for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. That night, Daniel gathered his team in a small room on Orbital 7. Priya Nair, quantum physicist. Oscar Reyes, construction foreman. Amara Obi, communications specialist. For humans against a dying star. "The council gave us 50 years, Daniel said. "Generous of them," Oscar muttered. "Very generous. Which is why we are going to finish in 30. Priya looked up sharply. "That is not physically possible with the resources they allocated." "Then we will find more resources. We will work faster. We will invent solutions that do not exist yet." Daniel pulled up the holographic star map. Every engineer in history was told their dream was impossible. Every single one. And the ones we remember are the ones who did not listen. Amara leaned forward. The Vethani are watching. The whole galaxy is watching. They expect us to fail. Good, Daniel said. Then they will not interfere while we succeed. He looked at each of them in turn. We are going to build something that lasts 10,000 years. We are going to save 12 billion lives. And when we are done, the galaxy will never look at humans the same way again. Outside the window, stars burned cold and distant. Among them, one star was dying, and 4 humans were planning to stop it. The impossible had just been scheduled for completion. Toril had expected to find a graveyard point 18 months after the council vote. His observation ship approached the construction zone near the dying star. Radiation warnings screamed across every sensor. Heat readings made the navigation computer suggest immediate retreat. But through the viewport, Toril saw something that made him forget the warnings entirely. Lights. Thousands of them. Moving in patterns like fireflies dancing in formation. Ships, welding rigs, cargo haulers, and tiny figures in suits that seemed far too thin for the environment. The humans had not just started. They had built a small city in the void. This is not possible, Suri said beside him. Her golden scales had paled. No species begins construction this quickly. There are surveys, studies, environmental assessments, committee approvals. The process takes decades. Humans have been here for 18 months, Toril observed. Exactly my point. Their ship docked at a spinning station that served as the project headquarters. A stocky man with a scarred face met them at the airlock. His suit was covered in scorch marks, and he smelled like burnt metal. Oscar Reyes, he said. Construction foreman. You must be the observers. Try not to get in the way. He turned and walked without waiting for a response. Toril and Suri exchanged glances and followed. The station interior was chaos. Humans moved in every direction, shouting over the noise of machinery. Display screens showed complex diagrams covered in handwritten notes. Someone had taped a picture of a sunset to a support beam. You work in shifts? Suri asked, struggling to keep up. 3 shifts, Oscar said. 8 hours each. Around the clock. The star does not sleep, so neither does the project. No species maintains continuous construction, Suri protested. Workers require rest periods, mental recovery, schedule flexibility. Oscar stopped and looked at her. Workers require purpose. Everything else is optional. He led them to an observation deck overlooking the main construction zone. Toril's breath caught that a section of the shield had already taken shape. It curved like a vast metal wing, hundreds of kilometers across. Workers crawled along its surface like insects, welding seams that glowed orange against the black. You are using Vethani alloys, Toril said quietly. But your welding technique is primitive by galactic standards. Our welds are ugly, Oscar agreed. They are also stronger. Galactic welding is precise and beautiful. Human welding adapts. It responds to stress, to imperfection, to the reality of working in terrible conditions. Pretty welds break. Ugly welds last. Priya Nair joined them, her dark hair floating in the low gravity. Our power system is operational, she announced. We are pulling energy directly from the dying star. Suri made a sound of disbelief. You are harvesting radiation from the source of the problem? Waste not, want not, Priya said. The star is going to release that energy anyway. We simply catch it and use it. Galactic engineers called this approach suicidal. Is it not? Only if it does not work. Priya smiled. It works. For 3 days, Toril and Suri observed. They watched humans work through conditions that would have forced any other species to retreat. They saw welders ignore radiation alarms that screamed constantly. They saw engineers argue over calculations while floating in hard vacuum. On the 4th day, the star reminded everyone why this project existed. A massive solar flare erupted without warning. Alarms filled the station. Emergency protocols activated across every system. All workers, evacuate to safe distance, the computer announced. Radiation levels exceeding safety margins. Repeat, evacuate immediately. Toril watched the construction zone through the viewport, expecting to see ships fleeing. Instead, he saw something that stopped his hearts. The humans were not leaving. Tiny figures anchored themselves to the shield structure. Ships positioned themselves as barriers against the worst radiation. Workers continued welding even as the flare washed over them. They are going to die, Suri whispered. Maybe, Oscar said. He had not moved from the observation deck. But the shield section will survive. Every hour of work we save is another hour we gain. We did the math. You did the math on acceptable deaths. Oscar's scarred face was hard. We did the math on necessary sacrifice. Every worker out there volunteered. They know what the star can do. They also know what it will do to 12 billion Vethani if we fail. The flare passed. Damage reports came in. 7 workers dead. 42 injured. The shield section remained intact. That night, humans gathered in the station common area. They did not mourn quietly. They shared stories about the fallen. They laughed at old jokes. They raised glasses of something they called whiskey. Toril sat alone, watching them. Suri found him there. I do not understand them, she admitted. They lost 7 people today. They should be traumatized, devastated, questioning their choices. They lost 7 people today, Toril agreed. And tomorrow they will return to work. Because stopping means those 7 died for nothing. He looked at the completion projections on his personal display. 18 months of work. They were already 8 years ahead of schedule. They are not building with logic, Suri said quietly. No, Toril agreed. They are building with something else. Something I have never seen before. He did not know what to call it yet, but he was beginning to understand why humans never gave up. The funeral lasted 20 minutes. The planning meeting lasted 6 hours. 200 names filled the memorial wall in the station chapel. 200 humans who had died when a support beam failed during installation. The collapse had torn through an entire construction sector. Bodies were still being recovered. Toril attended the funeral. He watched humans stand in silence, heads bowed, while Amara Obi read each name aloud. Some workers cried. Some stood stone-faced. All of them listened until the last name was spoken. Then they went back to work, not immediately. There was a meal first. Food shared in quiet groups. Hands clasped on shoulders. Words exchanged in voices too soft for translation devices. The rituals of grief were short, but they were real. What came next was what Toril could not comprehend. Within hours of the funeral, Daniel Wright called a meeting. Engineers, physicists, construction leads, and safety officers crowded into a room still decorated with memorial flowers. The beam failure was caused by material fatigue we did not account for, Daniel said. Our calculations were wrong. The guild was right to doubt our methods. So we stop, someone asked. No. Daniel pulled up new schematics on the central display. We redesign. The new support structure uses redundant systems. If one beam fails, 6 others take the load. We tested the design this morning. It works. Toril stared at the timestamps on the designs. They had been created overnight. During the hours when humans should have been mourning, they had been solving the problem that caused the deaths. You did this already. Toril interrupted. Every human turned to look at him. 200 of your people died yesterday, and you spent the night working? Daniel met his gaze. Grief and purpose are not enemies, observer. We can honor the dead by finishing what they started. Sitting in darkness helps no one. Your species is strange, Toril said quietly. Yes, Daniel agreed. We are. 3 days later, High Prefect Morith arrived. His ship was enormous, a statement of power and authority. He had come to officially recommend abandoning the project. Morith walked through the construction zone in a protective suit designed for his stone-like body. Toril accompanied him, along with Suri, who had not spoken much since the disaster. The guild has reviewed your failure, Morith said to Daniel. The structural collapse proves what we predicted. Human methods are insufficient for construction at this scale. We recommend immediate cessation of all operations. Noted, Daniel said. Denied. Morith stopped walking. You cannot deny a guild recommendation. I just did. For a long moment, the ancient engineer and the human architect stared at each other. Morith had overseen projects lasting millennia. He had watched civilizations crumble and reform. He was not used to being contradicted. 200 dead, Morith said. How many more before you accept reality? How many Vethani die if we give up? Daniel replied. 12 billion. Every one of them. Their children, their elders, their artists and farmers and dreamers. All of them. If we quit now, they have no hope at all. Hope is not a construction material. No, but it is the reason to build. Amara Obi stepped forward. She had been quiet until now, observing the confrontation. "Hi, Prefect, may I show you something?" She activated a communication relay. A holographic display appeared, showing a planet covered in swirling clouds. The Vedhani homeworld. Yesterday, we broadcast a message to the Vedhani people. We told them about the accident. We told them about the deaths. And we told them we were not stopping. The display shifted to show crowds gathered in Vedhani cities. Millions of people watching screens, listening to transmissions. This was their response, Amara said. Voices filled the room. Vedhani voices, translated by computer into human languages. "Thank you. Do not give up. We believe in you. Our children will remember. We received 6 million messages in 12 hours, Amara said. They believe in us, High Prefect. They believe because no one else has ever tried." Morith was silent. His stone face revealed nothing, but Toril noticed something he had never seen before. The ancient engineer was uncertain. "You will fail," Morith said finally. But the words lacked conviction. "Maybe," Daniel said, "but we will fail trying." And that is more than anyone else offered them. Morith left the station that evening. He filed no report with the guild. The official recommendation for project cessation was never submitted. Toril found Daniel on the observation deck later, staring at the construction zone. "What drives your species?" Toril asked. It was the same question Morith had asked years ago. "I have watched you for 5 years now. I still do not understand." Daniel thought about the question for a long time. "When I was young," he said, "I asked my father why he volunteered at a hospital. He worked long hours. He came home exhausted. The patients were strangers. I asked him why he bothered. What did he say? He said that helping was not about who deserved it. Helping was about who needed it. Every person in that hospital needed someone to care. So he cared." Daniel gestured at the shield taking shape in the void. 12 billion strangers need us to care. So we care. It really is that simple. Toril recorded the conversation in his observation logs. He was beginning to understand. And what he understood frightened him a little. Because if humans were right, then the entire galaxy had been wrong for millions of years. Singing was the thing Toril noticed first. 12 years into the project, he had learned to recognize many human behaviors. He understood their schedules, their meals, their strange need for recreation. But the singing still confused him. Workers sang while welding. They sang while hauling cargo. They sang in the showers, in the corridors, in the vacuum of space when their suit radios accidentally transmitted. The songs had no purpose. They did not coordinate movements or communicate information. Humans simply sang because singing made them feel better. "It is inefficient," Suri complained one afternoon. She had become less hostile over the years, but still struggled with human nature. "Singing wastes breath and concentration." "Does it?" Toril asked. "Their productivity has increased every year. Perhaps singing is more useful than silence." Suri had no response for that. The shield had reached 75% completion. What had once seemed impossible was now clearly going to succeed. The question was no longer if humans could build it, but whether they could finish before the star's death accelerated. Oscar Reyes found Toril one evening in the observation lounge. The construction foreman had aged visibly. Gray streaked his hair, and new scars marked his hands. But his energy remained endless. "Family dinner tonight," Oscar said. "You should come." Family dinner. The night shift tradition. Once a week, we all eat together. Floating in zero gravity, passing containers of terrible food, telling lies about our accomplishments. Oscar grinned. "It is wonderful." Toril hesitated. In 400 years, he had observed many species. He had never been invited to participate. "I will come," he said. The dining hall was chaos. Humans and containers drifted in all directions. Laughter echoed off the walls. Someone had strung lights that blinked in patterns that made no sense. Oscar pushed a container toward Toril. "Noodles. The sauce is made from something that might have been tomatoes once. Do not ask questions." Toril tried the food. It was terrible. He ate it anyway. Around him, humans shared stories. A welder described a complicated repair job, exaggerating the difficulty until his friends threw napkins at him. An engineer explained a calculation error that had nearly caused a disaster, turning her own failure into comedy. A pilot demonstrated, with hand gestures, how she had dodged debris during a solar flare. They were not just workers. They were a family. "You build community," Toril said to Oscar. "Even here. Even in the void near a dying star. Especially here, Oscar corrected. Hard places need connection most. Humans learned that a long time ago. A commotion near the entrance caught their attention. Suri had entered, looking uncomfortable. Behind her came something Toril had never expected to see. Young Vedhani. 3 of them, barely past adolescence, with scales still bright and movements still uncertain. We came to help, the tallest one announced. We saw the broadcasts. We want to build. Silence fell across the room. Vedhani had not performed physical labor in millennia. Their culture considered such work beneath them. Priya Nair drifted forward. Do you know how to weld? No, the young Vedhani admitted. But we can learn. Humans learned. Why not us? Priya looked at Oscar. Oscar looked at Daniel, who had appeared at the edge of the crowd. Daniel smiled. Someone find them suits. Training starts tomorrow. The humans cheered. The young Vedhani looked startled, then pleased. One of them drifted toward Toril. You are the observer, she said. Your reports inspired us. You said humans build with something beyond logic. We want to understand what that means. I am still learning myself, Toril admitted. Then we will learn together. Within weeks, word spread. More young Vedhani arrived. Then volunteers from other species. The project that had been dismissed as human foolishness became something larger. Toril sent his first fully positive report to the collective. After 12 years of careful documentation, he finally wrote words he had never expected to write. Recommend full cooperation. Humans have succeeded where we failed. Not because of superior technology or greater resources. They succeeded because they understood something we forgot. Building is not about what you construct. Building is about why you construct. Humans build because others need them. That simple truth has changed everything. The Galactic Council received his report with surprise. Quietly, resources began flowing to the project. Ships, materials, engineers from a dozen species. The impossible had become inevitable. One evening, a Vedhani child visited the station with her parents. She was young enough to still ask questions without embarrassment. She found Daniel in the observation lounge and tugged on his sleeve. Why do humans help people they never met? She asked. Daniel knelt down to meet her eyes. Because someone might need us, he said. That is enough. The child thought about this for a moment. Then she nodded, as if the answer made perfect sense. Toril watched the exchange from across the room. In 400 years, he had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species achieve greatness and destroy themselves. But he had never seen anything like this. A child asking the right question. A human giving the right answer. Hope was not a construction material, but it was the foundation on which everything else was built. Numbers do not lie. 27 years into the project, the star's decay had accelerated beyond all predictions. Daniel stared at the readings on his display, watching the countdown shrink. What should have been years became months. What should have been months became weeks. The shield sat at 94% completion. So close. So impossibly close. 6 weeks, Priya said. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. The final arc needs 6 months of work. We have 6 weeks before the radiation spike makes completion impossible. Then we work faster, Oscar said. Oscar, the math does not allow it. We would need continuous construction with no breaks, no maintenance delays, no human rest cycles. Oscar looked around the room at the assembled team leaders. Humans, Vedhani, and engineers from 8 other species. 27 years of work, and it came down to this. The long shift, Oscar said. Continuous rotation. Teams work until they drop, then the next team takes over. No breaks. No sleep cycles. No stopping. The casualty projections are severe, the medical officer warned. Exhaustion, accidents, radiation exposure. We could lose dozens of people. We lose 12 billion if we fail. Silence filled the room. Then, one by one, hands rose, volunteers. Every single person in the room. I need names on a list, Oscar said quietly. If you have families, consider carefully. This is not an order. This is a choice. The list filled within an hour. The waiting list was longer than the active roster. Construction resumed at speeds that defied everything the galaxy knew about building. Welders worked until they collapsed and were carried to medical bays while replacements took their tools. Engineers ran calculations on handheld devices while eating, while walking, while floating between work zones. Sleep became a luxury no one could afford. Toril made a decision that surprised even himself. I wish to join a construction team, he told Oscar. The foreman stared at him. You are an observer. You document. You do not build. I have observed for 27 years. I have documented human sacrifice and human determination. I cannot watch anymore. I must participate. Oscar studied the ancient Vedhani for a long moment. Then he handed him a welding tool. Training takes 3 hours. Try not to burn yourself. Toril was not the only observer who stepped forward. Representatives from 6 species joined the construction crews. For the first time in galactic history, multiple civilizations worked side by side on physical labor. The guild scholars, the prestigious scientists, the dignitaries who had come to witness history were now making history themselves. 4 weeks in, the star released a massive flare. It came early. The models had predicted another week of stability. The star did not care about models. The unfinished section of the shield faced destruction. Years of work, weeks from completion, about to be erased. All personnel evacuate, the computer announced. Radiation levels critical. But the ships at the construction zone did not retreat. Instead, they moved forward, human pilots. 12 of them, flying vessels loaded with reflective plating and emergency shielding. They positioned themselves between the flare and the unfinished section. What are they doing? Suri demanded from the command station. Buying time, Daniel said. His voice was barely a whisper. The ships formed a barrier. Heat and radiation pounded against their hulls. Temperatures inside rose beyond survivable limits. Communication channels filled with voices, calm and steady despite what was happening. Section 7 holding. Hull breach in 3 minutes. Tell my wife I love her. Maintain position. The welders need 2 more hours. Behind the dying ships, construction continued. Welders worked faster than they had ever worked before. Metal joined metal. Seams sealed. The final section took shape while 12 pilots burned alive to protect it. 1 by 1, the ships failed. 12 bright flares against the greater flare of the dying star. 12 lives spent so that billions could survive. The solar event ended. The construction continued. Oscar Reyes welded the final plate into place. His hands shook. His suit was scorched. Tears floated inside his helmet. It is done, he said over the open channel. The shield is complete. Cheering erupted across the station. Species that had never celebrated together embraced in the corridors. Humans and Vedhani and a dozen others, united by exhaustion and triumph. Toril found a quiet corner and sat alone that he thought about the 12 pilots. He thought about the 200 who had died in the collapse. He thought about every sacrifice made over 27 years. Suri found him there. They won, she said. Against every prediction, every calculation, every probability, they won. We won, Toril corrected. All of us. Together. Suri sat beside him. Her golden scales had faded over the years. She was no longer the skeptical young scientist who had come to witness human failure. I was wrong, she said quietly. When I first arrived, I said humans build with something beyond logic. I thought that meant they were foolish. And now I understand. They build with love. For strangers, for futures they will never see, for children not yet born. Love is not logical, but it is the strongest material in the universe. Toril looked out at the completed shield. A monument to human determination. A gift from the youngest species to one of the oldest. The pilots, he said. They bought us the time. Now we must honor them. Suri nodded. Every species will remember their names. And they would. For 10,000 years and more. Children played in streets that should have been ash. The stellar shield activated at dawn on the Vedhani homeworld. 12 billion people gathered in cities and villages, on rooftops and beaches, watching the sky. For generations, they had lived under a death sentence. The dying star had been a constant reminder that their world had an expiration date. Now, for the first time, they saw a safe sunrise. The shield bent radiation away from the planet like water flowing around a stone. Deadly energy that should have poisoned the atmosphere instead curved harmlessly into space. Scientists confirmed what the population could already feel. The homeworld would survive. In the Galactic Council chamber, High Prefect Morith stood before the assembled delegates. His stone face showed something new. Humility. I come before this council to offer formal apology, Morith said. His voice carried across the vast chamber. For 2 million years, my guild has measured success by what could be built. We judged humanity by their technology, their resources, their experience. We were wrong. He turned to face the human delegation. Humanity taught us that true building is not about materials or methods. It is about purpose. They succeeded where we failed because they understood why they were building. Not for glory, not for profit, not for recognition. They built because strangers needed help. That simple truth changed everything. Daniel Wright, gray-haired now and moving slowly, accepted the apology with a simple nod. He had been offered speeches, medals, monuments in his name. He declined them all. "We did not do this alone," he said. "Every species that joined us shares in this achievement. The shield belongs to the galaxy. May it remind us all what we can accomplish together." After the ceremony, Daniel found Toril in the observation gallery. The ancient Vedhani looked out at the stars, lost in thought. "You look troubled," Daniel said. "This should be a day of celebration." "It is," Toril agreed. "But I am thinking about what comes next." "What do you mean?" "For 400 years, I watched species compete. I watched them guard resources, hoard knowledge, build walls instead of bridges. The galaxy operated on mistrust. And now, because of humans, everything has changed. Species are asking questions they never asked before. If we can build together, what else can we achieve together?" Daniel smiled. "That sounds like hope." "It is. And hope, as you once told me, is not a construction material, but it is the foundation on which everything else is built." They stood together in comfortable silence. Two old men from different species, united by decades of shared purpose. "It is not the shield," Daniel said finally. "The shield is metal and energy and calculations. It will last 10,000 years, and then it will fail. What matters is not what we built. What matters is what we proved. Any species can build monuments. Only those who love strangers can build miracles." 100 years passed. The stellar shield became a pilgrimage site. Ships from every corner of the galaxy traveled to see it. Not because it was technically impressive, though it was. They came because of what it represented. Plaques lined the memorial station orbiting the shield. Every name of every being who had worked on the project was inscribed there. Humans, Vedhani, and dozens of other species. The 12 pilots who had died holding back the flare. The 200 who had died in the collapse. Every sacrifice, remembered forever. A young Vedhani engineer walked the memorial halls. Her name was Priya, given to her by parents who wanted to honor the human physicist who had powered the shield. She was one of thousands of children across the galaxy named for the builders. Young Priya paused before a particular plaque. Daniel Wright, lead architect, the human who had stood before a laughing council and promised to do the impossible. "I want to build like that," she whispered to herself. "I want to make something that matters." Behind her, an ancient figure moved slowly through the corridor. Toril, impossibly old now, still observing, still learning. "You can't," Toril said. Humans did not have special abilities or secret knowledge. They simply refused to accept that impossible meant impossible. Any species can do the same. Any being can choose to help. Is it really that simple? The simplest things often are. Toril gestured at the stars visible through the viewport. "Somewhere out there, someone needs help right now. The question is whether you will answer." Young Priya looked at the stars. So many worlds. So many possibilities. So many chances to build something that mattered. "I will answer," she said. Toril smiled. It was the same answer Daniel had given so many years ago. The same answer that had started everything. Nearby, construction had already begun on a new project. This time, every species in the galaxy had volunteered from the start. Ships gathered from 1,000 worlds. Engineers debated designs in 100 languages. Workers trained side by side, learning from each other. Human instructors walked among them, handing out equipment and answering questions. They smiled at the chaos, at the arguments, at the beautiful mess of cooperation. One human, a young woman who had never met Daniel Wright but had grown up hearing his stories, handed a welding tool to a nervous young alien. "First time?" she asked. "Yes. I do not know if I can do this. Nobody does it first. That is why we learn together." The stars watched as they had always watched, distant and ancient and cold. But now, for the first time, they watched something different. A galaxy learning to build together, taught by the youngest species of all.